Hello and welcome to the BikeRadar news show. This month we're talking about a very tasty new cross-country bike that got off to winning ways.
There has also been some very interesting tech on display at the Giro d'Italia, along, Tom, with a Hollywood bromance.
I certainly didn't see this one coming.
Yeah, we weren't expecting this.
No. We also need to tell you about a banging bargain bike that outperformed everything else in our testing. So I think we better get cracking. It's finally mountain bike race season and the first cross-country World Cup of the year has thrown up a whole host of new tech.
You are buzzing for this, like myself as well, aren't you?
Yeah, it's true. I am really looking forward to the racing getting underway. Early World Cup season is a bike nerd's paradise, especially for a washed up XC racer like myself. Not that you'd know from my current physical state, unfortunately.
I mean, no, I'm not going to say anything, mate. I'm in the same boat. People in glass houses.
Yeah, they definitely shouldn't throw stones. No, absolutely not. Moving swiftly on to the first big bit of tech news, and it is of course the new Pinarello Dogma XC. Now, this was spotted in disguise at a round of the French XC Cup under Tom Pidcock and Pauline Ferrand-Prévot, but it has now been officially unveiled at the Nove Mesto World Cup.
I have to say, as an uneducated roadie, this looks kind of like every other mountain bike cross-country thing I see these days.
It does share very similar lines to others on the circuit, like the new Wille Urta SLR and BMC's new 4-stroke, which we featured on the channel for sure. But it does have some very unique features to set it apart.
Okay, talk me through. What are we seeing here?
Most obvious is the strut above the bottom bracket shell, which Pinarello says is there to help optimise stiffness around the main pivot and allows them to use a patent-pending split rear triangle.
So does it use flex stays like almost kind of every other XC bike?
Yeah, so it still uses flex stays, so there's no pivot on the rear end, but uniquely it's made up of two separate semi-triangles rather than the usual one. So there's no braces between either side of the triangles. So it gives Pinarello more tyre clearance, limits mud build-up, and it means they can reduce the chainstay length of the bike as well.
That sounds simple, but also complicated, all at the same time to my simple little roadie brain. But what does it have? Is geometry?
It does indeed have geometry, Liam. It does have geometry, but I won't bore you with the numbers, so check out the full feature on BikeRadar.com for those. It's linked in the description. What I actually find more interesting is the suspension. Now, it has an adjustable shock mount under the top tube, so that little piece of machined alloy there. It can be adjusted to give either 90mm of travel for use with a 100mm fork, or 100mm of rear wheel travel with a 120mm fork, making it a little more downcountry-esque if you want.
I really hate that word, downcountry. Why on earth is that a thing? Before I get into too much of a rage, isn't the suspension itself electronic?
I quite like it, but that's a whole other argument for a different day. In terms of the Dogma XC Suntour suspension, yes, it is electronic and it is known as tacked. They're being very tight-lipped about it, but we do know that there looks to be a single wire connecting the fork and the shock together, presumably with a battery in the frame somewhere, and from what we can see, there's no external controls for it, so unlike RockShox's flight attendant, it can't be seemingly adjusted on the fly. It does, however, look pretty close to production, so be sure to stay tuned for more details as soon as we get them.
I mean, you mountain bikers and your suspension, honestly. Anything else caught your eye?
Yet something that certainly didn't need any help standing out was Cervélo's new and seriously yellow ZFS-5 of Team Jumbo Visma.
I saw this one. This is very yellow and I love it.
It is extremely yellow. Once again, this shares somewhat similar lines to the Dogma XC with flex-stay rear suspension, the top tube shock mounted there, and what Cervélo claims is progressive but racy geometry.
I have to say, of all of the bikes that I saw at Nove Mesto, the Cervélo is probably my favourite.
I would have to agree. I do really like it. It's very clean, it's very simple, and perhaps unsurprisingly, considering both brands are owned by Pon Holdings, it looks very similar to the Santa Cruz Blur as well, which is a bike I'm a big fan of. Be sure to check out the full story on the Cervélo with the link in the description. And while you're there, be sure to check out our extensive and frankly excellent Mountain Bike of the Year test.
Bike of the Year.
Bike of the Year.
The time our readers love and our tech editors and us, we slowly lose our minds. We've got winners from brands you might not expect across trail, enduro and e-mountain bike categories. So check out the website now for the full written reviews and make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss out on the videos when they come out. The first of the Grand Tours is on and the Giro d'Italia has presented us with some new clobber. But first, who do you think is Geraint Thomas's biggest fan?
Is it you?
No, it's only Mr. Blue Steel himself, Ben Stiller. How their paths crossed, we're not sure, but Stiller has been a fan of cycling for quite a long time now. Anyway, this was basically just an excuse so that we could do Blue Steel. You ready? 3, 2, 1. Okay. Do you want a crop top?
I'm all right, thank you. I don't think I need one.
Well, Rule 28's aero base layer might sit under a rider's jersey or skin suit, but it is actually quite easy to spot. Sleeves that were once smooth suddenly gain a textured surface, and we saw so many riders using them in the first week time trials.
It does always seem to me that the time trials always seem to throw up the most interesting in terms of tech, so far this year, certainly.
Yeah, let's have a look at the crop top in a bit. There have been a few new bits I want to take a look at first. Ineos's riders, for example, have been wearing a new road helmet. That's Kask's new £335 or $400 Elemento lid. It has carbon panels and 3D printed pads. Aurélien Parderpintre of AG2R has been using an unpainted BMC. We reckon that this is probably just the standard bike, but maybe a bit lighter.
Well, that will certainly be one to watch, but come on, what about the time trials?
Well, there has been a bit of a rule change regarding the aero extensions. I don't want to bore you, so we'll summarize this by saying that you can angle your arms up more.
You can go more this way, more hashtag aero.
Yeah.
So why does that help?
Well, basically that just reduces a gap in here. A good example is Stefan Kung. Look at how those extensions just shoot for the sky. His face is basically hidden by his hands. While we're on the subject of extensions, Bob Jungels has a very snazzy looking set. They're not new though. Then there were a host of riders using sponsor incorrect wheels. Remco had an Aero Coach AOX Tyson front wheel with a 100mm deep rim.
That's a big rim.
Yeah, some UAE riders also turned to the British specialist for its TT wheels as well. Balkan Mollema was using a Giro helmet with Trek stickers covering the logos because they're obviously sponsored by Bontrager.
Yeah.
And then you have those Aero base layers, and we saw a fair few of those.
That's all good for the riders at the front, getting the latest tech, but what about the smaller teams?
Yeah, some riders are very well equipped, but others just have to kind of make do with what they're given. They don't ever really have to go for time trial wins, or the team just can't afford the kind of fancy kit and testing.
Yeah, I suppose it is a very expensive part of the sport, isn't it, time trialing?
So you get riders like this Corotech lad. That's not an optimized positions, but I mean, optimizations cost money, and it's likely that Corotech doesn't have very much of that. Then, something about the French riders today. Thomas Champion from Cofidis, a great name. I'd argue that his grip on the bars there is not that secure.
It's a bit of a T-Rex pose, that, isn't it?
Yes.
Or a sad puppy.
It's dainty. I mean, to be honest, it isn't just the smaller teams. Ineos's Geraint Thomas has a very nice setup. He only beat his teammate, Theo Gegenhardt, by a second. And that, to me, doesn't look like Theo has a completely optimized front end. Gaps are small, guys. These things really, really matter.
When you're looking for those microseconds, all adds up, doesn't it?
I think the perfect example of that is Ben Healy. He has made every effort to optimize his setup, going as far as wearing a full time trial suit for road stages that he is targeting. He gets really tucked down on his Cannondale System 6 and dons aero overshoes as well. 10 years ago, this would have been a massive no-no in a road race. He attacked from the break, some 50 kilometers from the finish. He grabbed a Strava com on the way, which means he does have some serious watts. But you don't win a stage like that by 1 minute and 50 seconds without being super duper aero.
So, come on, what about the guy's hair?
In the name of aero, Ben, come on, lose the locks. But the biggest tech from the Giro is the return of face masks. They're back in fashion after numerous riders were forced to abandon the race this year.
Yeah, the race organisation made the use of masks mandatory again for areas like the mix zone where the riders are interviewed.
Yeah, it's really a shame to see them come back, but
yeah, it's still that word is still a fact of life, isn't it, unfortunately?
Should we move on to e-mountain bikes?
Let's move on to e-mountain bikes indeed. So back onto mountain biking news now, and the rise of electric bikes shows no sign at all of slowing down, with Canyon introducing a whole host of new EMTBs.
Didn't they just introduce 4 new models?
Yeah, 4 new models to sink our teeth into. The somewhat tongue-twisting Canyon Grand Canyon On, the Spectral On, the Strive On, and the Torque On.
Jog On.
No, not jog on, no.
The Torque On sounds like a really bad kind of Fast and Furious ripoff.
It does actually, doesn't it? Yeah. But funny you mention that, as the Grand Canyon On has a model with Bosch's new e-bike ABS system.
That just sounds like even more to go wrong, and probably not something that the Shred Sled crew will be able to throw their weight behind.
No, you're not going to be able to, sort of throw some shapes with anti-lock brakes, are you? I'm not convinced either, but we'll have to see how that one goes. The Canyon, however, that really caught our eye was the new Strive On. Unlike the purely pedal-powered Strive, which uses Canyon's geometry and suspension adjusting shapeshifter technology, the Strive On has fixed geometry and is only available with a mullet wheel setup.
Oh my god, are you going on about geometry again? What is this?
Yes, I'm on about geometry again, Liam.
Come on, apologise. Get the numbers out of the way. I know you are dying to talk about it.
Can I do the geometry now? Okay, thank you. You can't be slack with these numbers, Liam. The good people of the internet need to know, and I'm pleased to inform them that the Strive On has plenty slack geometry with a 63.5-degree head angle, a nice and roomy 475mm reach on even the size medium. So despite the pretty short 445mm chainstays, this is a big bike.
You and your mountain biking friends just love geometry charts.
We do love geometry charts.
Come on, what's powering this big old beast then?
Unsurprisingly, Bosch's very popular performance line CX motor takes care of the power bit, but the range-topping CFR model does have the performance line CX race motor, which gives the same 600 watts of peak power and 85 newton meters of torque, but increases the pedal assist from 340 to 400%.
So basically, it gives you more power for less actual pedaling power?
Yeah, exactly. So say you're putting in 150 watts of power, the CX Race would give you an extra 450 watts of assistance, rather than the 360 watts of the regular CX motor.
That sounds like a lot to take in, Tom. If you want to know more, where should you go?
If you want to know more, you should check out our first look and first ride review written by fellow Wrexham dweller and our digital writer Nick Clark on BikeRadar.com, with the links in the description. It's new bike time now, and this one is a gem.
You definitely need to have a look at this if you're in the market for a new road or gravel bike.
It's so good, in fact, that it's won our overall Bike of the Year award.
Absolutely. The bike in question is the Vitus Venon RS. It costs £4,699, comes with a SRAM Force Access group set, carbon wheels, a brilliant carbon bar, hidden cable routing, and mounts for mudguards.
Good old mudguards.
Oh, and the brilliant thing is that it can take 45mm
That's
tires.
a chunky tyre.
I know mixing gravel and road into one bike is a compromise that some people don't like, but for the amount of gravel that I ride, which is just occasionally, have one bike to do that, but also my winter riding and the commute, that would be amazing.
Yeah, and you also really can't knock it for value as well. It looks really sharp. I like that it uses sensible, user-friendly features like the removable front derailleur mount for those like me that will want to use one bike gearing. Just looks really neat and cracking value.
It's just a very well thought out, highly versatile bike that makes so much sense to me.
Yeah, and me as well, can fully agree with that. A worthy winner.
Now, if you want to see why the Venon has claimed the Endurance Bike of the Year award as well as the Overall Bike of the Year award, head on over to watch our big collection of videos where we go through the tested bikes and why a bike won.
Yeah, would you buy a bike like the Venon to mix road and gravel? Be sure to let us know in the comments, and remember to give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time.